Happy Thursday. I am John Smith. I am here with Dr. Brent Rollins, PhD.
That's right.
Brent, listen, I went to 5 schools, so I'm the most educated person you'll probably talk to in this next 30 minutes at least. No, always in awe of Brent's work. Been following Brent a long time on the socials. This is our first conversation, and I'm excited today. We're going to talk a little bit of Georgia, and then we'll talk a little bit of college football in general. Brent, if you don't know, does C-ball, get ball with David Pollock, does a lot of stuff with PFF. He's a professor, like all the things. So we'll let Brent tell y'all where to find him in just a little bit, but we're going to hop right into it. Brent, what's going on with the Georgia Bulldogs? And listen, let's be clear. When I say what's going on with the Georgia Bulldogs, Georgia just lost a game by 3 points on, essentially a 2 or 3 play swing the other way, and Georgia wins that football game maybe by 2 scores. But Georgia fans tuning in, it really doesn't feel that way. And I think it doesn't feel that way because Georgia has gone 4-3 in their last 7 games versus Power 4 opponents. 3 of those 4 have gone to overtime. What's your take just in general in terms of these Dogs? What are you seeing from them? And maybe we'll start there and then we can get into maybe some specifics.
Well, the first thing, I think you always start with the positive. What's the positive? The positive is that you're 3-1, which is exactly where with a loss to Alabama. It's exactly where you were a season ago, a season that ended with you 10-2 and in the college football playoff, the 2 seed, right? They were the 2 seed.
Yep.
So, if that holds, I think Georgia's probably okay with, and Georgia fans are okay with how things turn out. Yeah. But I think the feel is different and to me, you don't have big time pros. That's when you look at college football now, to me, it's the parity is there and people talk about the parity, but you still, to win at the most elite of level, you have to have pros and you have to have just better players. And you're not seeing that in certain areas that you're used to seeing at the University of Georgia. And I think that to me is one where, as a fan, you're like, okay, I think this guy's good. I think, I know this highly recruited guy can be. I see a snippet of it, but the consistent greatness or consistent being elite or even dominance, because like you pointed out with the record, that I think is where you're missing. And that's what's going to make the rest of the season, to me, just dogfights, like no pun intended, but all of them going to be good games. Like Kentucky this weekend. Could I see it where you go to the fourth quarter and it's a 7-point game? Yes. Would it shock me? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think Kentucky feels like the kind of game historically. This is a get-right game for Georgia, and we'll talk about Kentucky in a minute as well. But I don't know. I don't know, right? I mean, I think we're in a new world. And Kirby Smart, to be fair, he's tried to warn us 2 years in a row, right? He's tried to warn Georgia fans. When I say us, I'm a Georgia fan. He's tried to warn Georgia fans for 2 years in a row. Yep. He said last year in August, he said in one of his press conferences, I have the least amount of depth of players ready to play winning football that I've had probably in my time here. And then this year, he said 54% of my roster is second year or younger. He also said in an interview with Josh Pate this summer that I encourage folks to go watch because it's really enlightening. He said, hey, I used to build your program around 3rd and 4th year guys. First year guy is trying to figure out he is just trying to survive. Second year guy trying to figure out who they are. 3rd and 4th year guy, is kind of what you hang your hat on. And he said, now I'm having to depend on 2nd year guys as experienced guys. And he said, people have asked me, what do you do to speed up a process that takes 2 years? He said, you don't. It takes 2 years. And so when it takes 2 years, what you do is you do what Georgia is doing, and what Georgia's had to do is you play young guys. You play Dontrell Glover, who is he came in the summer. I mean, this is a guy who didn't go through spring ball, and ends up getting a ton of reps.
And is one of their 3 most athletic linemen instantaneously.
instantaneously, and that tells you something in terms of depth. It tells you something in terms of youth, and so I think that, to your point, I think the good for Georgia is you are where you are last year. Last year after week 5, Notre Dame is probably the best example. Was not even in the playoff field. They had lost to Northern Illinois,
right?
Nowhere on the radar to be found, and ended up playing for a national championship, right? So Georgia, I think you're where you are, but you've got to. I think Georgia fans, we're going to have to get used to a little bit of these rock fights and a little bit of these kind of games. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. If you look at, Ohio State is another example. Lost a 1-point game to Oregon on the road, lost to Michigan at home, turns around, puts it together, right? A loss is only really catastrophic if you make it be catastrophic. If you learn, you grow, you get better. I think that's all good.
It's definitely turned into a sort of just win baby kind of environment.
Yeah,
it really has.
It is, and I think as someone who grew up on Georgia football. I will take just win, baby. I mean, I know we've been spoiled. I know there's expectations. I know Kirby himself is responsible for a lot of that, with pressure as a privilege and all of these things. But at the end of the day, just winning is really all that matters. Tell me a little bit about, some of we'll say we talked a little bit about the good. We talked a little bit maybe about the bad. What's the ugly for this football team? What does Georgia just have to figure out if they're really going to not turn an Alabama loss and a game versus Tennessee where it could have gone the other way? It could have been 2-2. What are the things that Georgia really has to fix in a hurry if they're gonna kind of get back on track to achieve that championship level football that they're aspiring to?
I think your answer might surprise me, because in the grand scheme of things and the public view, hey, we can't pressure the quarterback. Like, we can't get after the quarterback. Our defense is struggling. I don't know that's just going to have to improve over time. Mm-hmm. And I actually, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but from a difference-making player perspective, I don't know. It's more going to be better assignment football than it is talent taking over. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's actually one unique thing, and it's something that I'm going to work on today if I can. Hopefully, get it out tomorrow on UGAsports.com. They have to get more explosive in the play action game. Mm. When Kirby talked about after the game, I know my team can run the football, and I know my team can stop the run. So if you can run the football, and I think they're going to, and it was what they did against Alabama did not shock me in the slightest, because the seeds were there over those first games of just one little hold on to a block or one little cut, one little bit more patient, and you're going to get explosive runs. And you saw consistent explosive runs for them. But that only translated to 21 points. You have to be explosive in the passing game, and you have to be explosive off play action, especially if you are going to be a running team. Let me give you a number that you might be like, what? So Gunnar Stockton's average depth of target is 6 yards. It's the lowest in the Power Four, which most people that's kind of been talked about. Hey, a lot of the screens, he instead of, he's just taking those, that sort of thing. They're number one in screen percentage too, but that's neither here nor there. Right. Folks can make Bobo comments all they want. Right. But so let me ask you a question. Hey, let's run play action. Do you think that average depth of target, i.e. how far down the field they throw the ball, would go up? I mean, it should on play action, right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? Logic, right? Logic tells you that.
Yes.
His actually goes down.
Ooh.
To 5.3.
So when Georgia runs play action, Gunnar Stockton's average depth of target goes down versus when they don't run play action.
Correct.
Wow.
And it's checked down. He's taking checkdowns galore.
Yeah.
And he's missing, and that just was beyond shock to me. So I went back and looked, and I've numbers and all that sort of stuff. Less than 30% of his throws are past the sticks on play action. The lowest number in all of the Kirby era in that regard is like 9 yards, and that was last year with Carson Beck. Wow. So, Stetson was at 14 yards 1 year in play action. From 12 yards. Like, that's where you get the explosive plays to allow your running game and to generate more points. So to me, if there is one thing that absolutely has to change, is he's got to take those shots. And the thing is it's not as much with him over the first 4 games of that he's playing bad or that he's not. It's turn downs. It's stuff that's there.
Yeah.
Like Herb Street pointed it out on the broadcast that one Delp was clearly open on a play action crosser. The next play, Gunner got 20 yards down the field, but you got to take that.
Yeah.
The last drive was one of, like, to me was where it's right before the branch throw that he makes into traffic, which was a great throw.
Great throw, but
just straight drop back, and you got to make that throw because it's third down. But on second down, play action, he kind of feels phantom rush and just goes into panic mode. They had one-on-one everywhere, and Branch cuts out. If you get that ball to him at all, and he makes one guy miss, it's an 80-yard touchdown, like, because he's scoring.
Wow. With
his ability. So that's where they absolutely have to get better. And you think it's going to happen this week against Kentucky, and at a certain point, you're just going to have to take those shots and let your playmakers be that. But that, to me, is the big thing that has to change.
Let me ask you this. So I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn based off of all that you said. And I love this. This is what I have been mulling. Okay. Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart does a lot of things that are very Saban-esque. And I wonder if not shockingly. No, I mean, hell. Okay. I'm going to say this first of all, publicly. Kirby Smart is a better football coach than anything I will ever be good at in my entire life. Right. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, okay, so
all of us can agree to that.
Yes, let's agree. Yes, let's agree. Nick Saban was a better football coach than Kirby Smart is. I mean, maybe he had Kirby Smart on his staff, whatever. Nick Saban, obviously the results speak for themselves. Yes. These are guys that are at the absolute upper echelon of their game. So when I say this, I am not criticizing. I am not, I'm just asking a question. Georgia versus Austin Peay. The first 2 series versus Austin Peay, Gunnar Stockton used his legs. He ran, got a couple first downs. After that, it seemed like that the staff was going to force the issue of him, kind of staying in the pocket, of him making his reads, of him doing those things. Because you saw, Austin Peay was getting pressure on him. He wasn't taking off. Georgia ran 7 plays or whatever it was on the goal line versus Austin Peay. Didn't run Gunnar Stockton one time. It was almost like there was a conscious decision that we're not going to run Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah.
And force kind of the issue. And so I think with Austin Peay, you've seen some of this with Georgia being 0-14-1 when they're favored by 38 points.
Yes.
You've seen some of this where they don't go out and open it up.
They don't
go out. Yeah, it's a practice, and they but it's a practice where they put their players in stress situations intentionally.
Yes.
You saw Alabama versus Louisiana Monroe score 73 points, throw the ball down the field. Ty Simpson, 17 for 17 or whatever it was, just lighten it up. This is totally just, for me, opinion, speculation, conjecture. But wouldn't you rather see Taylon Taylor have made a catch like the one that he dropped versus Alabama versus Austin Peay? And, it's kind of that like, hey, do you throw the deep ball a little bit more versus some of these guys, some of these teams? Do you go out and do you actually open things up a little bit and let these guys, these young guys, if you got to play them anyway, get confidence? Hey, I've caught a deep ball in the stadium before. Gunnar Stockton, I've let it rip over and over and over against a team that clearly we were outmatched. But I think for me, as somebody who played the sport, there is something of like when you've done something once and you have like that kind of proof point. Hey, I know what it looks like. I know, I can do this. It feels like a bad time to be trying to put the kid in a situation to do that versus Alabama when you're down by 3, when you didn't asking him to do something that you didn't even do versus Austin Peay. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? That's totally,
right, so there's a lot of ways we can go with that.
Yeah.
So in the big picture sense, it's worked out well for him.
Absolutely.
Because even thinking back to, there was a unique thing. I remember when they played Samford. Mm-hmm. Was that 2022?
It was 2022. Yeah.
And they were purposely doing things in the sort of lower or 9-10 yard area with Stetson, where it's like, hey, can we win these one-on-ones? Can we do these things? Mm-hmm. Instead of just, hey, let's go run the play that scores.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So there's part of that I understand that part. Mm-hmm. But the confidence part that you're talking about, I also understand.
Yeah.
And especially in the unique situation to me that you're talking about with Taylor. And I know there's been conversation back and forth on the dog vent about that, about, hey, because I wrote in my thing, don't put the freshman there in that situation.
Yeah.
And folks, the counter to that is, well, he's a 5-star freshman. You got to expect him to do those things.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. But if you're going to ask him to do those things, play him 10 snaps before he does it.
Yeah.
Get him a target, get him a screen, get something that's that. But I get the confidence versus stress points.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where you haven't been able to question it yet.
No. And you go back to, Georgia, like you saw Austin Peay, right? And as everybody, Tennessee fans, media, Gunnar Stockton, is the weak link of Georgia's team, blah, blah, blah. And then, you go up to Neyland Stadium and first play, you take a shot to Colby Young. You throw that ball to London Humphrey, right? And a friend of mine said to me when I was munsoning about Austin Peay, and why didn't we open it up? He said, what he said, he said, listen, he said, I don't know much, but when Kirby Smart does something the opposite of what Josh Heupel is doing before they play, it feels like a pretty good.
You're okay with it.
Yeah, you're okay with it, right? Because Heupel was going out and scoring 70. So I get it. I guess that's my thing when you talk about.
The interesting thing, though, just to sort of get there, is that say you go and lose at Auburn, and now you're in borderline panic mode.
Yep.
Now, maybe those questions become more of something that you can ask, because it's like, hey, if we're going to have to depend on these guys in tough situations, let's throw them out there as much as you can. But the sad part is you don't have another game like that every game. Like, you get Charlotte later in the year, but but that's later. That's no.
Yeah, and Charlotte will tend to be what that game normally is, which is a get guys healthy kind of game.
Yes,
but that's just my question. So when you talk about average depth of target, when you talk about Gunnar Stockton, kind of panicking a little bit, moving too fast, going to checkdowns, those types of things. I go back to those games where it is like, hey, could you do more? But at the end of the day, I'll say what you said and what I owned up to. I mean, until Kirby Smart, until proven otherwise, I mean, the guy's method works, and no one, media, anybody else, fans especially, it should be out here, trying to get the guy to change the way he leads an entire program because he lost by 3 to Alabama in a game where he easily could have gone the other way. So
you go 8-4, different story though.
100%, and that's it, right? So I think the story is still to be written on this 2025 Georgia team. I like where we sit. I like there's a lot of things to like. I think at the end of the day, we saw the Georgia offensive line grow up a lot in that bye week. The run game, everybody's been, myself included, been clamoring for the run game. I mean, it looked pretty good, and so it does take a little bit when you have young guys playing to put it all together. So, all right, let's pivot just a little bit because I do want to talk a little bit more college football broadly.
Okay.
What's the most, and just get your opinions and your takes. What's the most surprising thing to you in the first 5 weeks of college football as a whole? Is there anything that stands out that you're like, I didn't expect that, and this is where we are?
The Ohio State's actually better on defense.
Yeah.
All the guys that they lost, and yes, you knew they had Caleb Downs coming back and they had Sonny Styles coming back.
But they also lost Jim Knowles.
They lost their coach.
Yeah.
They lost, a lot of dudes to the draft. And, Detroit Lion fans were probably like punking them and saying, oh, Patricia's your coach now. Just wait. But the guy can coordinate a defense.
Yeah.
And if you ask me what's the best unit in college football right now, it's their defense. And that's a scary proposition when you have 4 on the other side of the ball that you got to play. Yeah. So that's probably, and maybe that's too specific in terms of the most surprising thing. I mean, the quarterback stuff, because we always lean towards quarterbacks and how a lot of the sort of hyped quarterbacks versus how they've actually played. I didn't think Clemson would be this struggle bus this much. I thought they'd be at least ACC champion type team, but but no, I didn't see this. But they actually still have a path to being a big time spoiler because of who they have left on their schedule and screwing up the play. They still play Florida State, things like that. I thought Miami would be good, but I was hesitant because of. But if you had told me that, hey, there's going to be this 17-year-old kid that they get that's absolutely unguardable in the slot, I actually would. If you would have told me that before the season, and I should have, bad by me for not reading up on that. But that kid, Malachi Toney, with Carson Beck, he's the absolute perfect receiver that Carson Beck could ever have. Because he's going to win instantly, and Carson Beck is deadly accurate in that 5 to 15-yard area. That's scary for them because of their line of scrimmage, Bain taking a leap, all sorts of things. But I think to me the fact that Ohio State, because I look at the landscape of things in the parity conversation, watching Ohio State play right now, they look like they're on cruise control. They look like they're just, hey, we know our defense is phenomenal. We're just going to gradually work our quarterback into this thing. And when he needs to turn it on and we need to open it up and we need to push the ball down the field, be more explosive, we're going to be. And that's one of those things where, much like Kirby in 2022, after getting over the hump in 21, the confidence that he coached with in 22 was a whole different level. And I think you're seeing that a little bit from Ryan Day. Looks very in control of that team. That, to me, is the scariest team in college football.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Ryan Day, Chip Kelly talked about this a lot last year in the playoffs. And Ryan Day talked about it about Chip Kelly. About one thing that Chip Kelly brought to Ryan Day last year, as a guy with a ton of head coaching experience, was that in-season management, as he referred to it, of basically playing the game to have longevity in the season, right? To protect health, to do things that like Kirby does, and like Ohio State did last year, even though they lost that game to Michigan. It's like they got in the playoffs, they were healthy. They had all the guys they needed, and I think you see that a lot with Ohio State. That's a good call.
I don't think they're unbeatable. I don't think no one's unbeatable.
No,
especially on any given Saturday. Especially that now. But in terms of just levels, they have way more levels than everybody else. And I think people have been dunking on Arch Manning, which for me is neither here nor there. I think the kid may have been set up for it, from no doing of his own other than being his last name, right? But I do think you go back and watch that Ohio State defense. A lot of people were dunking on Arch Manning in that game, but dude, I don't know a quarterback. He actually
right now in college
not horribly.
He did compared to who he's playing against and what we've seen from them after that. You look back on that game, it's like, all right, well, which quarterback would go out there and do what everybody expected, Arch Manning to do? I don't know.
This game with this weekend, I am. It's outside of Miami, Florida State. The game that I want, that I'm dialed into more than any, is Texas, Florida. And the reason I say that because obviously I work for a Georgia website, so they still play Texas. They've already played Alabama. Whatever happens against Vandy happens. But Texas, Florida, because both teams have had a bye, and is the confidence and swag, whatever that the Arch they talk about, does he have it back?
The Arch been playing really good defense. The Arch aura.
Does he have it back? Does Florida's defense is really good? But Lagway, can they find something offensively? I mean, that spread is a 6, I think 6, maybe 6.5, something like that.
6.5
at Florida. That game to me is fascinating this weekend.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that game is going to go, in my opinion, as Arch Manning goes. I think it is going to be, if he can come out and make some plays against that Florida defense. I think Texas can probably score. I don't trust Florida to be able to score enough, but then you look at it and you're like, but there's nowhere to go but up. And you also look at, we said, again, last year, a lot of people said, and I know DJ Lagway was hurt, and I know this year he hasn't played well. So I get it. But people had buried Billy Napier last year, and
he's better maybe that way.
And maybe he is. Maybe that's where he is better that way. A couple other questions before I ask you those, though. I want to point out I have to point this out. I watched C-Ball Get Ball, and I watched David Pollack call you a Penn State hater when you picked Oregon to beat Penn State. Tell me about Penn State. Like we talked to Ohio State, right? We talked to Arch Manning expectations. Man, what is Penn State? Like what is James Franklin coming into the season? He said it himself. He said, "Hey, I feel like we have from top to bottom, we have the best coaching staff, we have the best players, depth, all those things, top to bottom." He said at Big Ten Media Days himself. What's going on with Penn State?
I think they have to very much look in the mirror at what they are and what they should be offensively.
Yeah.
Because, and this is, I haven't gotten a chance to make this point on any of the pods because I just haven't. But their offense, and I saw Joel Klatt talking about it yesterday, maybe on social, but their offense is designed like it's a team that is like if you're thinking about a high school team, that's a 5-5 high school team who plays more talented teams all the time. And we have to do these unique things and misdirection things to try to trick in a way, but try to create things because our athletes aren't better. That's how their offense is designed. And you think about that. Colton Ecke came from small football, I think
he did
D3 or I forget exactly. I think it was D3.
Yeah, and then worked his way up through Kansas and
right.
But everywhere he's been playing with
less talent typically.
Less talent, yeah.
But they don't have less talent. And so when you do those things, you're asking your quarterback to do certain things and rhythmically, to me, from an offensive standpoint, how they play. Like if they either need to decide, hey, we need to be a run the football primarily and take deep shots, kind of like I'm thinking Georgia might end up being.
Yeah.
Or we need to be more aggressive down the field with our quarterback who can touch any level of the field with his arm. I think he's got major issues mechanically and his accuracy, and it's a thing. But you have to, when you think about what can be sustainable against good teams, you have to either be really great in the run game and be explosive in the passing game, or be explosive early in the passing game so your run game can take over late. Because their run game is so good, and those backs are so good, and that's why they got back in that game against Oregon, is because at the end of a game, 4 quarters, that the defense is just tired of tackling those dudes.
Yeah.
And eventually those guys are going to win because the two of them and the way they split the stuff. So if you ask me what's more likely today, that Penn State, makes or misses the playoffs, I would say it's more likely that they miss the playoffs because Indiana, they got to go to Ohio State. Yeah. They got some other Big Ten games that might trip them up if they don't sort of really look at themselves and play a different style, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also think, the Big Ten, we'll see how it shakes out this year, but I do think with parity and I think with where we are in these conferences, it'll be interesting to see how many slots are available for a 3-loss Penn State team who didn't play in a Big Ten championship, right? Like last year, you felt like you could make the case for some of those teams. And this year it's like, I think there are other teams like Alabama is a good example where there's teams that are going to be in the mix. Even, you look at what Mizzou is doing. I mean, there's a lot of teams I think they're going to come down to be in the mix. And if you're a 3-loss team that didn't play in a conference championship game, you might get pushed out pretty quickly.
I think that's one of those, there's 2 things if I were to spin it ahead to playoff selection Sunday, 2 things that I'm looking at right now is there's going to be teams, 3, 4, 5 teams that are 9-3 that are going to be in that mix, and it's going to be argument city. We're talking about Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina a year ago. I think there's going to be a couple Big Ten teams that might be in that boat too, and now you're looking at 5 or 6. You got to choose out of 2 out of 6 that are 9-3. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing that is going to be insanely interesting, I think, this year, looking ahead, is how they treat the conference championship games.
Oof. Yeah.
What if Georgia Tech is 10-2 in the ACC championship game, and their losses are to maybe they lost at Duke and they lose to Georgia. Yeah. Last year, based on how they talked last year, they're in the playoff, independent of the result in the ACC championship game. Yep. But they also will likely not have especially if Clemson keeps tanking or struggles.
Yeah,
they won't have a win to sort of point to.
Right.
And Indiana maybe even.
Yeah, that was that was Indiana last year. I mean, Indiana, had no wins over ranked opponents last year, and got it.
Even if there's even if they beat Penn State and Penn State's a 9-3 team, they beat Illinois, something like that. And now they're in the Big Ten championship game, or who knows what? Maybe.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, but those conferences and their championship games, and even the SEC potentially.
Yeah,
where you might have a 10-2 SEC team in the championship game that's now 10-3.
Yep.
Because wasn't, if I remember right, was Texas 11-1? I can't remember.
Texas was 11-1. Yep.
Right.
And they
so
lost
this year. Like the probability of two teams being 10-2 in that game, and now one of them loses, and you got to slot that versus other stuff, versus a 10-2 team that might actually have a big win as well. I think that's something that Selection Sunday is going to be. People are going to be up in arms about potentially. Yeah,
and I think that's I think not to get too much into the weeds about selections and all these things, but like it's going to be really interesting because they've had the debate over and over and over now about strength of schedule, about kind of all of these things, and how does the committee actually what metrics do they use? How do they watch the games? Like, what criteria do they take into account? Like all this entire debate, right?
Yes.
Last year,
so fun.
So fun. And last year, I mean, it didn't really matter, right? I mean, let's be honest. Last year, you had a bunch of 11-1 teams: Indiana, SMU, Boise State. You had a bunch of those teams. I guess Boise State was actually 12-1. But you had a bunch of those teams, and then you had in the mix, you had Ohio State's 10-2, lost to their rival. Had Tennessee 10-2.
It was clear. It was actually relatively clear.
It was.
The only decision was, are you keeping SMU in after losing the ACC championship game? But they had said beforehand that, hey, they basically locked it into place. So there wasn't really much debate. I think there's going to be a lot of debate this year.
Correct. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you're, I think you're right. You're going to have a few 2 or 3 lost teams. All right. A couple other questions and then we'll get out of here. So I mentioned Notre Dame earlier. After week 5, Notre Dame wasn't anywhere to be found. They had lost to Northern Illinois at home. Everybody had buried them, and then they ended up playing for a national championship. Are there any teams like that this year? And I know we just talked about, hey, there's, who knows what's going to happen, all these things. Is there anybody on your radar that's like, hey, this team, is probably a team to watch? And it could be, a group of 5 team, right? Because we know that the highest ranked group of 5 gets, none of those.
They play a different sport.
Yeah, they do play a different sport. Yeah.
They need their own playoff.
Agree, 100%. Tell me, is there any sleepers, anybody that you're like, hey, this team's going to end up in the playoffs, and we're not talking about them right now?
I think it's the team you just mentioned, actually.
Yeah,
it's Notre Dame.
Yeah,
if they take care of business against USC at home, they're going to finish 10-2. They're going to get better. Their coach is too good. Like, he's already shown that he will adapt and will improve as the season goes on. Their quarterback is legit.
Yep.
Those 2 backs are as good as it gets. They have talent up and down their roster that a lot of teams don't necessarily have. And if you asked me today, like I saw, I think it was Bud Elliott that was doing his blue chip ratio thing, like odds for the national championship.
Yep.
Notre Dame was like plus 2,500.
Yeah.
To me, it would be the best value play out there that we actually get a repeat national championship game, Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Good to know. And Notre Dame definitely, you mentioned with USC, their schedule lines up for sure. And I do. You have to agree, right? I mean, if Texas A&M keeps playing like they've been playing, if Miami keeps playing like they've been playing, you get down, you're 10-2, and those are your 2 losses, and they came in the first 2 weeks of the season. Yeah,
and they'll kill teams. That's the thing. Like they did last year.
Yeah,
they'll like they did to Arkansas.
Yep.
I think they're just going to destroy, especially if they get their defense continually worked out. They're just going to destroy teams.
Yep.
And and everybody will be like, I can't not put them in.
Yep.
They lost early with a young quarterback. One was on the road, and they're murdering teams now. They got to be. They'll be the 8 seed.
Yep.
They'll get a home game, and then they'll be trouble. And maybe they play. They'd be Ohio State in that second game potentially, but that team to me is one that you would definitely look out for.
Yeah, and I'll give you one of mine, and I mentioned them earlier too. Watch out for Mizzou. That game, October 11th versus Alabama. If Eli Drinkwitz goes in there and wins that game versus Alabama on October 11th, then you got Auburn, Vanderbilt, you got Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. I mean, all of those for that Missouri team, especially with the way they're playing on both sides of the ball, are very winnable football games.
Drink does not get the credit that guy deserves.
No.
That dude can coach.
No.
And you talk about, Lane gets sort of as the portal king or Cristobal or, that as no. Mm-hmm. Look what Eli Drinkwitz has done year after year in terms of just getting guys from the portal and putting them into a spot, and then they go ball out.
Yeah.
Like all their best players right now are guys they got from the portal, and they took, the one who Penn State said no to, and Penn State screwed up because he's better than the guy that they have.
Absolutely,
is better than Aller. I think that without a shadow of a doubt. Like, and just how he plays, his mechanics, throwing with anticipation, legs. He's faster,
dude. His moxie. I mean, the dude is just a dude. Like, he is in all ways. He's better than Drew Aller, and it's hard. Like you had the Carson Beck situation with Georgia, right? Where it is like, Drew Aller, like if he stays, I mean, he's going to start. But it does feel like Penn State made the wrong decision. And Eli Drinkwitz, I'll say this. I mean, this is a guy who does not have. This guy doesn't have the Nick Saban pedigree, right? Like you talk about all these SEC coaches. You talk about Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart. I mean, this guy was an offensive coordinator at Boise State, at Arkansas State, at NC State, head coach for 1 year at Appalachian State. And I think when he came in and the way that his tenure started at Mizzou, I think people definitely those first 3 years, I think people were again trying to bury him. And now, 11-2,
I love their
10,
system.
10-3. Oh,
how they play offenses. I enjoy how they play offense.
Yeah. For sure. So watch out for Mizzou. All right, Brent, tell the people where they can find you on all the interwebs.
Well, I primarily do the Twitter stuff. That's really the only one that I do. I have the other ones. I just don't take the time. I don't have enough time to mess with the other ones. Day job gets in the way of those things.
Yep.
But the C-ball, get ball stuff, that's on Saturday nights after the games. I'll hop in there. You'll see me occasionally and chatting and giving my 2 cents here and there. And that's usually Monday, Wednesday. That's Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday that we do that. And then I write after the games on Sunday for UGAsports.com. We do like film breakdowns, but it's behind the paywall now. Just because we had to change the schedule this year because otherwise I was going to absolutely drown with all the things when you have to watch all the games and be able to talk about all the games versus just one game. It's a little different. I've gotten that under control in terms of schedule this year, but it's fun. I just enjoy watching football, talking about it.
Yep. And if you're not a member at UGAsports.com, I'll go ahead and plug it because I think Brent's stuff. We have Speakeasy Sports, we have our social clubs and things, but like if you want real deep, film breakdowns, stuff like that, Brent does a really good job. It's worth the price of admission over there. All right, go follow Brent. Go subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back next time. Hopefully, talking about Georgia opening up, blowing the doors off, having a first half.
They need
lead,
that.
Having the first
the
half
fan base
lead
needs that.
Yeah, I think you were the one that told me this. I think I heard this from you on C-ball, get ball. Maybe not. Maybe it's somebody else. But Georgia hasn't had a halftime lead since October 19th at Texas.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a minute. So hopefully we'll get a first half lead. All right, we'll see y'all next time.